So this is going to sound like a lot of deja vu right now, and I kind of sound like a broken record, but the only way to lose body fat is by creating a calorie deficit consistently. This is whereby you eat less calories than what you burn off. Now the thing is, if you are not losing fat, you are not in a calorie deficit. If you are losing fat, you are in a calorie deficit. But a lot of people may be thinking, oh, I've not created a calorie deficit, but I've lost this weight. All I've had to do is restrict or cut out this food. That sounds like a calorie deficit to me. Remember, if you are taking food away from your current menu, you are reducing the amount of calories that you're eating, whether or not you consciously know that. So it does work, and a calorie deficit it will work. Like, if it doesn't work, then you are violating the laws of the universe. So it will work. But telling somebody that all they need to do to lose fat is to create a calorie deficit is kind of like telling somebody who's in a financially shit situation, all you need to do is earn more and spend less. That's how you not be poor. That's how you not be broke. Just, earn more, spend less. That's not the best piece of advice to give. And you can relate this to just telling somebody to create a calorie deficit, because saying to somebody, create a calorie deficit, it doesn't take into account behaviors. It doesn't take into account human behavior, because somebody will know, oh yeah, all I need to do is just eat less and do more. But their behaviours won't allow them to do that, especially if they've never done it before. Which is why building habits and behaviours in order to maintain results over a long period of time is vital to your success. Doesn't matter if you know that you need to reduce the amount of calories you're eating and burn more calories off if your behaviours limit your ability to do so. This is why I hate meal plans. This is why I hate diet plans, because they tell people what to eat, but they do nothing to change the behaviours or habits which have got them to that point in the first place. More often than not, when people come off plan or off of the diet plan which they've been given, they will regress back to the point where they used to be, or quite close to it, because the behaviours and habits which they haven't changed are still as prevalent. So instead of just saying to yourself, okay, I want to lose weight, I need to eat less and do more, start focusing on the behaviours and habits that you know that you need to change. And it doesn't even have to be massive change. Like, I'm not saying that you've got to restrict yourself from eating a takeaway at the weekend or not drink anymore. I mean, if you want to, crack on, but for the majority of people watching, that probably isn't the most ideal thing. Because if you're anything like me, you love a cheeky little Domino's, or you love spending too much money on Jaeger bombs on a night out. So change little things to do with your behaviours and your habits in order to begin making progress and begin actually adopting a calorie deficit. So such things as making mindful swaps. Instead of having a Coca-Cola, have a Pepsi Max. Instead of having a dessert, have a starter. Instead of spending 2 hours in the gym twice a week, spend 45 minutes 3 or 4 times a week. Instead of driving to the shop, which is a 5-minute drive away, maybe even walk. It'll only take you about 20 minutes. If somebody invites you out for a few bevs on a Sunday, then say to yourself, okay, probably I'll have 1 beer and then I'll stick with like Pepsi Max for the rest of it, or I'll just go on to squash. It's a Sunday. You don't want to get leery. Instead of having a large pizza, get a medium. Instead of having a bowl of chips, get half a portion with a little bit of chicken, a little bit of protein instead. See what I mean? It's just little changes to your behaviours and your habits which you're going to be able to adopt, which is therefore going to help you not just create your calorie deficit, because anyone can create a calorie deficit if they're forced to eat certain foods and forced to restrict themselves from eating other foods. But you'll be able to adopt it and adopt it for longer, and therefore retain your results for longer as well. A calorie deficit on its own is fucking useless. Absolutely useless, because you won't stick to it. You need to create a calorie deficit, but you also need to progress your behaviours and habits in much the same way as what you do in the gym with a squat. Start looking at the behaviours and the habits which have got you into the place in which you desired to change in the first place. So think, do you take the car more often than you walk? Do you buy high calorie foods when in fact you could probably go for their low calorie alternative because they taste just the same? Are you eating until you are incredibly full, or are you eating until you're satisfied? Are you too agreeable? Like, are you agreeing to go on 4 or 5 trips out a week and smash off 4 or 5 pints, when in actual fact you could probably limit yourself to once, or at the very maximum twice a week, and not get royally fucked up each time you go out? It sounds so unsexy, but behaviours and habits are the key towards your long-term success. And once again, it doesn't have to be massive changes, just little changes here and there, because the accumulation of little changes over time will eventually result in a big outcome. Like, I had a client once, and she was she was really struggling to create this calorie deficit. She was almost forcing herself to restrict certain foods and therefore eat less. And I'm fully against that. I'm not about that. I don't want anyone to sacrifice what makes their life enjoyable. I don't want people to feel like shit, because no goal should ever make you feel more shit on the journey to achieving it than what you were when you first started. So she felt like she was eating way less, but then we looked at her overall food diary, and then we realised that she was drinking 2 Coca-Colas a day, 4 cups of tea with 2 sugars in it, and she was also driving to the gym each day, even though it was, 20-minute walk. All we did was, we said to her, right, when you go to the gym, go and do your 20-minute walk to the gym, and then you don't have to do your cardio afterwards. Instead of having tea with 2 sugars, probably limit it to 1 sugar, or even better, put some sweetener in it. I know some people probably can taste the sweetener and it tastes a little bit different, but in this situation, it didn't. And instead of having 2 cans of Coca-Cola, have a Pepsi Max. We implemented these behavioural changes into her routine, and lo and behold, after a couple of weeks, she started noticing that fat drop because of the behaviours and habits which she adopted. Begin changing behaviours and habits, and your results are going to be not just easier to get, but they're going to stick with you for longer as well. A calorie deficit on its own is fucking useless. It's like telling a poor person to save more money and spend less. Obviously, that's not going to help. You need to instead implement certain steps to help them with that. So, help manage their finances, probably tell them to spend a little bit less there and save a little bit more there. Open up an ISA account, you know the deal. And it's the same with fat loss. Start changing little things here and there, and eventually the fruits of your efforts will show. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that helps. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like. If you want to ask any questions, or if you don't agree with me, if you do agree with me, or whatever, leave a comment, because I'd be more than happy to get back to you. And if you want any free fitness or fat loss based advice with zero bullshit, feel free to follow my Instagram at k.p_health. Anyway, sound.